Let's cultivate our motivation and think for a minute that our body and mind, our 5 aggregates, are changing in every split second. Try and get a sense of that. Nothing is remaining the same. And that our life is completely under the influence of afflictions and karma. And so there's no definite satisfaction, no peace to be found in that kind of state. And then let's reflect that although there may appear to be a permanent, monolithic, independent self or soul, something that endures this life and beyond this life without changing at all. Although we may think that such a self of soul or soul exists, when we examine, it becomes impossible to establish that such a thing exists. So we're empty of having some real soul or self. And not only that, although there appears to be a controller, a person that is in control of the body and mind, there too we can't identify an independent controller, something that is separate from the body and mind. That is who we are, that controls the body and mind. So that too doesn't exist. So we can see that all these notions that we have about who we are and what the world is are incorrect, and that based on believing them, being confused about how things exist, then we fabricate a real me that we get attached to. We get angry when somebody interferes with the happiness of this real me, so we lash out at them. So we create all these virtuous and non-virtuous actions under the influence of ignorance, and all of this serves to further our rebirth in this cycle of existence. And so let's generate a very strong intention to liberate ourselves from this situation, to attain a state of stable peace and tranquility. And let's develop a strong intention to develop our capacities so that we can help others attain a state of stable peace and bliss. And so in that way aspire for full awakening. So when we really think deeply about our situation, and when we look closely into how our mind thinks, what we believe, how we think things exist, what we think is life is all about, when we really, instead of just taking our assumptions and preconceptions for granted, look deeply, we discover, much to our surprise, that we're chock-a-block full of wrong conceptions and wrong views, and actually very seldom, if at all, see things in an accurate way. Is that kind of shocking to you? Yeah. We go, no, she's just saying that. Yeah. Buddhism has to say something, so she's saying that. Check up. No, because being a Dharma practitioner involves questioning everything. Absolutely everything. Yeah. To really see how things exist and what things are all about. Yeah, so really investigating and checking, and especially, this mind that just thinks automatically, oh, how I see things is what they are. And that's how we usually go through life. Now, however things appear to me, that's just what they are. So, this person over here appears to be a jerk. They're a jerk from their own side. This person over here appears to be wonderful. They're wonderful from their own side. Everything appears out there, so it exists out there. Yeah. I think of myself as, somehow not very good, so I must not be very good. So, we just kind of assume that everything exists the way it appears and everything we think is true. And this really leads us into a lot of problems. Yeah. I mean, how many of you were parents? Yeah, quite a number, okay? So you know that your little kids have a lot of wrong ideas, don't they? Yeah. And you know that if you don't help your children correct their wrong ideas, they're going to have a difficult time later on. Yeah. You know that when you're a parent. Okay. So it's very easy to see your kids' wrong ideas. But it's very hard for us to see our own. And so the Buddha is trying to point out to us our fantasies and how they, actually interfere with our happiness and cause us trouble. But we so often go, but this is the way things are, Buddha. I see them this way. This is my experience. Okay? And so again, it's the appearance of this life is so strong to our senses and to our mind that it's difficult for us actually to question these things and to think maybe things don't exist the way they appear to us. Like we were talking yesterday, we look at the flower and it's just out there. We don't think, oh, the flower is produced by causes and conditions, and it's only going to last as long as the causes and conditions for it to last are present. And after that, it's going to cease. We don't look at the flower that way. It just looks like it's a flower out there. And similarly with people, when we look at the people we care about, we don't think, oh, that person's only going to exist as long as the causes and conditions for them to exist are there. Yeah? Do you look at the people you love and think that they're products of causes and conditions, and that they're only going to be there as long as the causes and conditions are there? We don't see other people like that. They're there, permanent, out there, for sure. Not only are they permanent, but there's a real person there. Some real, solid person and personality and, self. Some core of them, who they are. And yet, when we ask, well, who is this person I love? Have you ever asked yourself that? Who is this person I'm so attached to? Is it their body? Is it their mind? Which mind? The mind that's sleeping? Is that the one I love? Or do I love their mind that's listening to sounds? Do I love their mind that is smelling smells? Do I love their angry mind? And we start to look at, well, who is this person there that I believe it so strongly? And all of a sudden that person begins to get a little bit fuzzy. And especially when you think of their body in constant change. Yeah? Do you love the person that's there this moment? Or do you love the person when they were a baby? Or when they were a toddler? When they had an adolescent body? Yeah. Would you love them if all of a sudden their age changed? How would you feel about them if they became a different sex or a different nationality? Yeah? It's so interesting because we feel like there's something solid there. And yet we can't really isolate it and identify it. And when we, look at ourselves with those same inquisitive eyes to find out who is the me that I feel so strongly exists, then it gets really perplexing. Yeah. So we say, I'm sitting here. Well, who's sitting here? Well, we say, I'm sitting here because our body's sitting there. But are you your body? Yeah. Are you and is your identity your body? Are you your body? That one gets a little hard, doesn't it? Which body then are you? The baby body? The toddler body? The adult body? The aching body? The sick body? And if you are your body, then are you just atoms and molecules? Do you feel that that's all you are, just atoms and molecules? Anybody here feel like they're atoms and molecules? Anybody here feel like your emotions are atoms and molecules? Are your thoughts atoms and molecules? Nitrogen and zinc and everything else? Is that what your thoughts are? Is that what your emotions are? If we think there's just the brain, then that's what we're actually saying, that my thoughts and emotions are atoms and molecules, which means you could have a Petri dish out there and you could say, that's anger. Yeah, nobody would do that. If we say our genes cause everything, that means you can have alcoholism in a Petri dish. Okay? Or love in a Petri dish. Kind of stupid, isn't it? But, we need to really examine and ask ourselves these kinds of questions. It's especially based on this notion of I, being so concrete and solid, and not only concrete and solid, but important. Yeah. Then we do everything in our lives to try and bring happiness to this I, and to try and avoid suffering. And so all day long, from morning till evening, even in our sleep, everything is about how to protect and bring safety and pleasure to this I that we're sure exists. Everything is about that. Yeah? Do you think that's true? Yeah? You say, but I think about other people sometimes. But we usually think about other people in terms of how they relate to me. Yeah? Everything is seen through the filter of me, who happens to exist, quite solidly, and, just coincidentally, is the center of the universe. The most important one, whose ideas are always correct, whose happiness is more important than anybody else's, whose suffering hurts more than anybody else's. And so we just move through life with all these kinds of assumptions and ideas and never question them. Yeah? Or even we start to question them. We say, I'm not going to go there. Like to question the idea that I'm not the most important one. Yeah, we'll say that. Oh yes, I know I'm not the most important one. Because to be socially acceptable, we can't go around saying, oh, I'm the most important one. That is just plain old not socially acceptable. So we all go around saying, oh yes, everybody's most important. Yeah. Especially if you're a Buddhist. Oh, I have so much love and compassion for everybody. They're definitely more important. All these sentient beings are more important than me. But that's my seat and get out of it. It's totally amazing. So if we really look at how we operate in the world, this self-grasping and the self-centeredness, they just run the show. I often tell people the story of many years ago. I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, teaching. I was teaching something from the 7-point thought training, the practice on the 5 powers, or the 5 forces, and it talks a lot about bodhicitta, and having this aspiration to become a Buddha for the benefit of all beings, and in your life, cultivating love and compassion, and at the time of death, having love and compassion and bodhicitta. So I spent the whole weekend talking about that. Very, very nice. And then I got on the plane going from Tennessee back to Seattle. I lived in Seattle at that time. So that's 2 long flights. So I'm walking back in the in the airplane, and it's completely packed. One of those, this was now forget it, but this was even before, totally packed flight. And somebody's in my seat, because I reserved an aisle seat, because I don't like sitting in the middle seat between 2 big people, because I'm small and I get squished. Yeah. And I said, "Excuse me, I think you're sitting in my seat." And the person says, "Oh, I was hoping I could sit here. I have the middle seat, but I'd like to sit here because it's a long flight." And I said, "Well, I would like to sit there too, and it's my seat." This was after a weekend of teaching love and compassion, bodhicitta. Yeah? You just see, you do, you say one thing, but what's the gut reaction? This is my seat on this plane. It's not your seat. And then what was even stranger, is when the flight was over and we got up, I left the plane. I had absolutely no thought about that seat. Before the flight, that was my seat, and thus incredibly important. As soon as the flight landed and we exited, there was no longer the label "my" on that seat, and I could care less what happened to it. Isn't that interesting? How at one time this whole idea of my or mine gets projected onto something, and it appears a certain way, and then just a slight change in circumstance, and that label is removed, and then your whole way of relating to it is totally different. You ever thought about that? Quite interesting. So why do we think something is mine, and why do we think that what's mine is most important? And what is it that makes something mine? And who is the person that owns it anyway? You have some sheet of paper saying you own this house or you own this car. Well, so what? Who is it that owns that? And does a piece of paper make it yours? In the conventional world, it does. But we don't look at this as conventionally being mine. We see it as really being mine. And that changes our whole way of relationship to it. Now, as soon as I look at these and say, these are my glasses, then I care a whole lot about what happens to them. as soon as, if I give them to you, and then the label changes and they become your glasses, I don't care what happens to them. Glasses are the same. The label's changed, that's all. And yet just by changing that label, the whole way of relating to something changes. I remember teaching in Israel many years ago, and we had a retreat in a kibbutz on the Negev desert. And many of the kibbutzim were built right on the border with, Lebanon or Syria or Jordan or whatever. This one was on the border with Jordan. And so I like to walk, so I, took my afternoon walk, and there was the barbed wire fence, and then there's a stretch of, I don't know, maybe 8 feet or maybe 10 feet, 12 feet of sand that is raked. So if anybody stepped on it, you would see the footprint. Raked sand, okay? And then, I can't remember if there was another fence after that. I don't think so. But there might have been. But anyway, I remember standing there and looking, and like right below my feet, there's sand. And 20 feet away, there's sand. And it's just sand. And yet, human beings will fight and kill each other over sand. And whether this sand is my sand or your sand. No. And so there's the fence that delineates my sand from your sand. And I wonder what would happen if you took the sand here and threw it on the other side of the fence. Yeah, then it becomes the other's sand. Yeah, then this sand stops being Israel, and that same sand becomes Jordan. Or if you move the fence a little bit, yeah, then what is Israel and what is Jordan changes. But people are going to fight over where to put that fence and kill each other over where to put that fence. And we look at the whole notion of honor. Honor, reputation, they're so important to us, aren't they? Yeah, the honor of my honor or my family's honor or my country's honor. Yeah, we identify something as me or as mine, and then the reputation of whatever that is, again, becomes very important. And if somebody insults our honor, this is a big thing. But what does somebody insulting our honor mean? Yeah, well, they said something like, you're an idiot, yeah, or your family's corrupt, or, you're blah, 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 something, yeah, some derogatory comment. And we say, my honor's been offended. My family's honor, my country's honor. They took my flag and dragged it through the streets. Yeah. Well, what is honor? What is it? Is it the words? Yeah. What is this honor that was offended? Where does it exist? You ever asked yourself that question? Yeah? Where's this honor that I cherish so much? Where is my family's honor? Where is my country's honor? Where is my honor? What is it? And it's basically just a thought, isn't it? That's all it is. It's nothing material. Can you find honor? Can you say, there it is, and draw a line around it? And what is offending my honor? Yeah. The person said some words. Those words are sounds. Words are sounds, just sounds. Air, sound waves going back and forth. That's all they are. A flag is a bunch of thread. Just a bunch of thread, that's all. And yet look at all the meaning that we impute to something, even though that something is not something we can even identify when we search for it. And we'll kill people out of honor. Yeah? Countries will kill people out of honor. So when we really look at this, here's where we can see that, our mind creates so much stuff and imputes value and imputes meaning on stuff that from its own side has no value and meaning. And then we fight and quarrel over whatever it was we imputed that meaning on, even to the point of killing each other. It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's sad. It's sad. So this is the disadvantage of having wrong views. Yeah, this is the disadvantage of self-grasping or of self-centeredness. Yeah, that we cause ourselves and so many other people incredible amounts of suffering because of the incorrect way in which we apprehend stuff. It's really sad, isn't it? So this is why learning the Four Noble Truths is important. Yeah, and so what I just talked about pertains to the first two Noble Truths, dukkha and the causes of dukkha. And so really looking into these and seeing how they function in our life. They're not, when you first study them, they sound like, okay, there's 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, they sound like some kind of intellectual something that you just memorize. But when you really think about them, they're talking about our life, our mind, and pointing out to us something really important that we need to consider and think about. Okay. So, yesterday we talked about the first two Noble Truths. And then I told you to come back for the light and love and bliss, and not as many people came back for it. You'd think, that they'd come for that one. Okay, so the first two Noble Truths, are a pair, and the last two are a pair. Okay, so the first two, we look at the situation we're in. Yeah, the situation that's unsatisfactory. And then we look at what causes it. What are its origins? Then with the second pair, we look at the state of liberation, and then we look at its causes, or what brings about the state of liberation, which is the true paths. So we have two sets here of a circumstance and then what brings that circumstance. So the first two noble truths are what we want to abandon. The last two are what we want to practice or adopt. In our monastic robes, we have two flaps in the back representing the first two noble truths that we want to abandon, and then the two flaps in the front on this side, the last two noble truths that we want to adopt and practice. So there's a lot of symbolism just in our robes. Yeah? And then the two sides together are wisdom and compassion. Yeah, joined. And these, one on each side, are the fangs of the Lord of Death. Yeah, reminding us that we exist, within the state of disintegrating every single minute, going towards our own demise. And so not to forget it, and in that way make our life meaningful by applying our attention to the path. Okay, so the four attributes of true cessations. So true cessations are the cessations of various levels of afflictions actualized by progressing through the paths to arhatship and full awakening. Okay, so they're cessations. They're the destruction or exhaustion or lack of different levels of afflictions and the karma that causes rebirth. So they're the destruction of the true origins and thereby of the true dukkha. Okay? Getting what I'm saying? Okay. So the afflictions are of two types. We have innate afflictions, which continue uninterruptedly from one lifetime to the next, that even babies have. And then we have acquired afflictions, which we gain in our different lifetimes according to coming in contact with incorrect philosophies or psychologies. Okay. So an example of an innate affliction would be the innate self-grasping, thinking that there's a real me here that's independent of any other factor. Yeah. An example of acquired or learned affliction is thinking, I am whatever race, ethnicity, nationality, sex, sexual orientation, education, social class that we are. Okay? Because all of those things are things just from this life, and so we develop some kind of, oh, well, I am this, and therefore you can't treat me like that. Okay? So the I am this part, whatever it is we make as our identity, is the learned part. But the part of there's a real me that is that, that's the innate part. So you can see that, the innate afflictions are really serious. We've got to get rid of those, because they just go on from one lifetime to the next if we don't get rid of them. But the acquired afflictions are also very serious. If we develop an ideology, that's very prominent in many, many religious traditions. Yeah, that killing to preserve our religious tradition is virtuous. Yeah, this exists in many traditions, doesn't it? It's the foundation of the Crusades. Yeah, it's the foundation. We see it in radical Islam. We see it in Judaism. We see it in all the religions. That somehow, if you kill to defend in the name of your religion, you will get incredible benefits afterwards. That is an acquired affliction. Yeah? It's something we learn, but look what a powerful force it is in this world. The fact that people learn that. We have to be so careful what we teach children. Because you get inculcated with certain identities when we're young, and then, boy, it becomes a big button pusher. Okay. So when we're going through the 4 attributes of true cessations, that are the cessations of these different levels of afflictions and karma, then the example that we're using, is nirvana. Remember in true dukkha, the example was the 5 aggregates. In true origin, it was craving. And now here, it's the nirvana of an arhat. An arhat is a foe destroyer, somebody who is liberated from cyclic existence. They're not fully awakened yet, like a Buddha is. Okay, but they're out of cyclic existence, and so this is taught according to all the different Buddhist schools. From a presentation that's in harmony with all of them. So nirvana is the cessation of dukkha, because being a state in which the origins of dukkha have been abandoned, it ensures that dukkha will no longer be produced. Remember, dukkha is the Pali word for the bad translation of suffering. Okay. So understanding that attaining true cessations is possible by eliminating the continuity of afflictions and karma dispels the misconception that the afflictions are an inherent part of our mind and that liberation is impossible. And so knowing that liberation is possible, that the state of liberation, it exists, gives us a lot of energy and confidence to try and attain it. Okay, so the first wrong conception concerning liberation or true cessations is that it's impossible. It doesn't exist. Why? Because I am my afflictions, or my afflictions are my inherent nature. There's no way to separate my affliction, me and my afflictions. Okay? And that's often the way we feel. Especially, many people in the West suffer from very deep shame or low self-esteem, lack of self-confidence. Sound familiar? Anybody have this problem? Yeah, self-hatred. So guilt. When we look at all these kinds of self-deprecating emotions, all of them somehow believe that I am my afflictions, or that my afflictions are an inherent part of me. In other words, I am damaged goods, and there's no way to purify my mind. And you'll hear people say, I'm just an angry person, and there's nothing I can do about it. You hear people say that, don't you? Or you hear people say, this is my personality. I can't change it. This is the way I was born. Yeah? And so thinking that way, then we believe that liberation is impossible because those things are who we are. We can't separate ourselves from them. So this first attribute of liberation, saying that nirvana is the cessation of dukkha, is saying, no, you can eliminate these afflictions. They are not an inherent part of you. They are something extra that's added on to your basic fundamental nature. So this is really, really important. Yeah, really important. And this gets into the whole topic of Buddha nature. Buddha nature, one aspect of Buddha nature is saying that the fundamental nature of our mind is not mixed with the afflictions. The afflictions have not entered the nature of the mind. And that the nature of the mind is also empty of inherent existence. It's not inherently this or inherently that. And this is something that very much challenges our ordinary self-conceptions and how we limit ourselves by having very incorrect, negative views of ourselves. I'm just an angry person. There's nothing I can do about it. Don't ask me to change. Wrong. Yeah. I'm just inherently inferior, inherently stupid. Can't do anything right. Hopeless, unlovable. Can't change. That's me. Wrong again. Okay. So all these afflictions, why is it that the afflictions can be eliminated? Yesterday we talked about ignorance, and how ignorance misapprehends things. So whereas things, that the things that function in our world depends on causes and conditions, ignorance doesn't apprehend them as dependent on causes and conditions. Whereas, all phenomena depend on parts. Ignorance doesn't apprehend them that way. Whereas all phenomena depend on our mind that puts the parts together, conceives of an object and gives it a label, gives it a name. Ignorance thinks that there's things out there from their own side, objective, out there. So ignorance's whole way of apprehending phenomena is incorrect. It projects false ways of existence onto phenomena that phenomena don't have. The chief one being inherent existence, existing independent from all other factors. And yet we see that everything exists independent on other dependent on other factors. Nothing exists without depending on other things. Okay? The flower doesn't exist without a seed. And the flower, becomes a flower because there's things that are not flowers. Okay? Everything exists, becomes what it is in relationship to other phenomena. So everything is dependent, and ignorance completely doesn't see that and holds things as being objective and independent. And we saw yesterday how all of our afflictions, attachment, jealousy, arrogance, laziness, lack of integrity, all sorts of afflictions stem from ignorance. So this ignorance can be eliminated because the object it apprehends does not exist. And there exists a mind called wisdom that perceives the exact opposite of what ignorance perceives. Okay. So ignorance perceives things as inherently existent. Wisdom sees things as empty of inherent existence. Yeah. So that wisdom can overpower the ignorance. It's like, you may have one mind that sees a scarecrow, and you may really think, oh, there's a scarecrow out there. But when you get closer, you see it's not a scarecrow, it's a person. The mind that sees the person, that sees things correctly, can overpower the mind that sees a scarecrow. Because the mind seeing a scarecrow is apprehending something that doesn't exist. And the wisdom that sees a person apprehends something that does exist. So wisdom can apprehend that misconception, can overcome and eliminate, eradicate that misconception. Okay? So all of our afflictions depend on ignorance. Ignorance apprehends things as existing in a way that they don't. Wisdom apprehends things in the opposite way and relies on valid reasoning, direct perception, and thus can eliminate the ignorance. When ignorance is eliminated, then the afflictions have nothing to stand on. Yeah. When the afflictions crumble, then the polluted karma created by the afflictions, that karma that causes rebirth and cyclic existence, that karma also ceases being created. Okay. So here we can see that through generating wisdom and eliminating ignorance, and thus afflictions and karma, it's actually possible to attain a state of liberation from cyclic existence. Yeah. So this means that all this stuff that we don't like about ourselves can get eliminated. Isn't that nice? Yeah. All this stuff we don't like about ourselves that we thought we were, can all of that is based on wrong conception and can be eliminated. And there exists a state of freedom from that. Now what's interesting is sometimes the idea of being free from our misconceptions can be a little bit scary, because we're so habituated to our misconceptions that the idea of giving them up, we go, who am I going to be? I've spent my whole life seeing myself as a victim of abuse. If I give up that identity as a victim of abuse, who am I? How am I going to relate to the world? Yeah? Can you see in yourself certain identities or certain self-conceptions that you grasp to very strongly, even though they are so painful? When you think of giving them up, it's a little bit unnerving because you've spent your whole life making an identity out of that. Yeah. Let's say when you were a little kid, your parents told you you were stupid. I taught grammar school, elementary school, before I became a nun. There's a little boy named Tyrone in my third grade class. Tyrone was not stupid, but the adults in his life told him he was. And he believed it. And as a result, he couldn't learn to read. Yeah. So he had trouble reading, not because he was stupid, but because he thought he was stupid. So we have many ways in which we limit ourselves by what we think we can do or who we think we are. And if all of a sudden that misconception is removed, in Tyrone's case, it would mean, oh, I can learn to read, which means I have to exert some energy to learn to read. I can't just blame it on being stupid or blaming it on the adults in my life who told me I was stupid. I now have to exert some energy. And who am I going to be if I know how to read? Wow, I'm going to be a whole different person. And I'm going to relate to all the other kids completely differently. And I'm going to be a totally different adult if I know how to read. Yeah? So sometimes, I mean, this is just an example with a kid, but we can see we've latched on to certain created identities. And if we give them up, it's going to mean that we have to change something. And it's a little bit unnervy. So sometimes we hold on to our old painful identities simply because they're familiar. I had a friend who told me once, I found this very sad. He suffered a lot from depression, and he said there's something very secure in being depressed because you know what tomorrow's going to be like. And I thought, oh, wow. But you know, when we want security, we latch on to anything, even something painful like that. So, we have to look inside of ourselves and try and relinquish some of this and give ourselves some space to see that liberation can be attained. It is possible. Second attribute of true cessations. Nirvana is peace because it's a separation in which the afflictions have been eliminated. So this counteracts the belief that polluted states, such as deep states of meditative absorption, are cessation. So, there exists these very deep states of meditative absorption, and they're extremely peaceful. And sometimes people confuse those with liberation. The reasons those states aren't actual liberation is because ignorance is still present. There's still grasping at true existence in those states. Yeah. So they aren't true liberation. So this is saying that true cessations are actual peace. No? Because they're a separation in which the afflictions have been eliminated. And in these deep states of meditative absorption, the afflictions have not been eliminated. Okay, so this quality is steering us towards what actually is liberation and not getting stuck in, just some state of deep concentration. You might say, well, what's wrong with that? If it's blissful, what's wrong with deep states of concentration? Well, what's wrong is that they're great while you have them. But when the karma to be born in those realms exist, then you get born in a grosser, realm, a realm with more misfortune. And you still continue to be reborn under the influence of afflictions and karma. Okay. one of my teachers, they took him to the top of the Eiffel Tower. Yeah. It was an old Lama, and they took him to the very top of the Eiffel Tower. And he said, "Oh, this is like those God realms with deep concentration. When you're there, the only place to go is down." Yeah? So that's exactly it. The third quality of true cessations, nirvana is magnificent because it's the superior source of benefit and happiness. So, because as the total freedom from all three types of dukkha, remember we talked about the three types yesterday, of pain, change, and pervasive conditioning. So as total freedom from all three types of dukkha, true cessation is totally non-deceptive. So it's not only the ultimate peace, but it's totally non-deceptive. There's no other state that supersedes it. Okay, so this, knowing this, prevents the wrong conception that thinks that there's some other state that is superior to the cessation of dukkha and its origins. Okay, so that's also important to know. So, this is getting us to refine our idea of what liberation is. Liberation from what? Yeah, it's not liberation from the communists or the socialists or the conservatives, It's not that kind of liberation. It's internal liberation from afflictions. Yeah. And then the fourth quality, nirvana, is definite emergence because it is total irreversible release from samsara. Okay? So liberation is definite abandonment because it's the irrevocable release from the dukkha of samsara. And this eliminates the wrong conception that once you eliminate ignorance and the afflictions, they can come back again. Yeah. Because, it's like you can get over the flu and then you relapse. Yeah. It's not like this. Yeah. Once you eliminate the afflictions, they can never come back again because the root of the afflictions, this ignorance that grasps at inherent or independent existence, has been completely cut off by means of the wisdom that perceives the way things actually exist. And so, when you meditate on the wisdom again and again and again, the habit, the ignorant habit, loses force and gets worn out and eventually is totally exhausted. And it can never come back again. Because once you know reality as it is, how are your wrong conceptions going to come back? Okay? So this state of liberation, nirvana, is not something that is reversible. It's not something that you can fall down from. Yeah. Once it's attained, you've got it forever. That's nice, isn't it? Now sometimes we have, we think, well, okay, that sounds good, but what exactly is liberation like? We have a hard time understanding what liberation is like. So let me give you just a few ways that I see it, that helps me. So, you know how it is to be angry. Yeah. And to have our mind out of control with anger because we feel hurt or afraid or offended or whatever it is. And completely the havoc that anger and resentment and grudges wreak on our life. Okay. Liberation is a state where you're totally free from anger. You never get angry again. People can call you all sorts of names. They can criticize you. They can demean you. They can talk behind your back. They can beat you up. And you don't get angry. Okay? Do you think that would be nice? Yeah. Somebody may say, but if I don't get angry, then they're going to kill me. Well, no. Anger isn't the only thing that can protect you from it, when you're in danger. You don't need to get angry to protect yourself. You can also have compassion for the person who's harming you and protect yourself because you don't want that person to continue to create negative karma. Okay? So don't think you're going to self-destruct if you don't get angry. But just think, just imagine, people could betray your trust. They can do the things that you consider most painful and hurtful right now. And from your side, you're not going to get bummed out about it. Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah? Your teenager can say anything. And you're just going to be balanced and calm. Okay? So that's, one way to think of liberation. Or another way is think of how your mind gets when you're full of craving and clinging desire. I want this. I have to have it. My whole life depends on this. I've got to have this. My reputation depends on it. My livelihood depends on it. My self-esteem depends on it. I need this love. I need this appreciation. I want, I have to have. You know how our mind gets? Now imagine that mind is totally eliminated. You never get that way. Yeah. All your neediness is gone inside, no matter what you have, who you are, what you do. You're completely satisfied. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Okay. So, when we see that liberation is the absence of these afflictions, then that gives us some, idea, and we imagine what it's like to be free of those afflictions. It gives us some idea about what this state of peace, nirvana, actually is like. Yeah. And then we compare that with the happiness of eating chocolate. Which one do you want? Do you want the happiness of eating chocolate? Or do you want the bliss of nirvana? So people sometimes get afraid, if I develop renunciation, if I seek liberation, I'm going to have to give up my happiness. Yeah. Well, when you compare the happiness of chocolate with the happiness of nirvana, there's no problem in giving up the happiness of the chocolate, is there? Yeah. Because the happiness of nirvana is so much greater that the happiness of the chocolate just becomes like, I'm not interested anymore. So real renunciation does not mean giving up our happiness. It's not torturing ourselves. Oh, I want that chocolate, but I'm a Buddhist and I can't eat it anymore. No, it's not like that. Here I'm using chocolate just as an example for whatever it is we're attached to. Yeah, it could be anything, whatever you're clinging to. But whatever it is that we're clinging to, that we feel I have to have, I need desperately, when you compare it with how good it's going to feel to never get angry again, to never have this clingy, needy, dissatisfied mind again. Yeah. Then the joy coming from Nirvana is so much better, you're not even going to notice chocolate. Yeah. Chocolate's going to be boring. Okay? Okay. Then, 4 attributes of true paths. Okay, so according to the Prasangika tenet system, this is the highest tenet system, the highest view system within Buddhism. A true path is an Arya's realization, informed by the wisdom directly realizing the emptiness of inherent existence. So remember yesterday we were saying that an Arya is somebody who's directly realized the actual nature of how things exist, the emptiness of inherent existence. And so a true path is a realization in the mental continuum of an Arya that is informed or influenced by this this direct perception of reality. And so the wisdom realizing emptiness itself is the principal true path, and so that's the example that is being used here, the wisdom directly realizing emptiness, yeah, to show us what the true path is. Yeah, because this is the wisdom that realizes things as they are and uproots the ignorance. So the first attribute of true paths, the wisdom directly realizing emptiness, is the path because it is the unmistaken path to liberation. Okay, so this counteracts, this wisdom leads to liberation. It's knowing, when you generate it, you are on the path to liberation. It is the path. So knowing this counteracts the misconception that there's no path to liberation. Yeah. So we might think, oh, liberation sounds nice, but it's impossible to get there. Yeah, there's no path. Yeah. So if we think that there's no path, then we're not going to try to cultivate the path. And in that way, that wrong conception limits our ability. Okay. So knowing that there's a path to liberation, to nirvana, is something really that gives us a lot of security. It's different than seeking security in samsara, because our security is, trying to actualize this path directly perceiving reality, because we know it will definitely lead us to this ultimate security, the ultimate safety of liberation. Okay? And so knowing there's a path means that there's a consciousness we can generate that will lead us. There is a system, a method of how to develop that consciousness. There's something we can do. We don't just sit around, may I attain liberation. Yeah, Buddha, I take refuge in you. I request you, make me a liberated being. And in the meantime, I'll have a cup of tea. His Holiness Dalai Lama is so strong about making prayers is not the path. It's an adjunct, because making prayers and aspirations sets our energy in the right direction. But just praying to the Buddha, may I become a liberated being, that alone will not get us to liberation. Yeah, because we have to actualize the path in our own mind stream. We have to transform our mind stream into the path. Yeah, the prayers are an adjunct, but they're not the main thing. The wisdom realizing emptiness is the main thing. And that path exists. We can actualize it. So that's very comforting to know. Otherwise, you feel like you're drowning in this world with so much misery, and there's no way to get out. And I think that's why so many people nowadays suffer from despair and depression, because all we hear is the 6 o'clock news, one suffering after another, one manifestation of people's afflictions after another, and then people just fall into despair and depression and say, what's the use? Yeah, because they don't know that nirvana exists, and they don't know that there's a path to attain it. Mm-hmm. So when we know that nirvana exists, when we know there's a path, even though we haven't developed the path, still our mood goes way up. We feel so much better about life, and we have a sense of purpose and meaning in our life. Something that we can do that will actually work to counteract not only our own misery, but the misery of all living beings. The second attribute of true paths, the wisdom directly realizing selflessness is suitable because it acts as the direct counterforce to the afflictions. Okay? So the wisdom realizing emptiness or selflessness is the correct path because it's a powerful antidote that directly counteracts the self-grasping ignorance and thus directly eliminates dukkha. Okay? So understanding this eliminates the misconception that the wisdom directly realizing emptiness is not a path to liberation. Yeah. So when we understand that this wisdom directly hits ignorance and can destroy it, again, that gives us a lot of confidence in the path. And confidence in that wisdom, because we know it actually is the unmistaken path. Yeah, it's directly going to hit at the heart. Yeah, it's what do they have, like these laser bombers now? Yeah, what do they call them? Drone. A drone is a good example of it. But drones don't always hit their target, do they? And there's a lot of collateral damage from drones. The wisdom realizing emptiness exactly hits the target of the ignorance, and there's no collateral damage. Yeah. This would be something really good for the CIA to develop. Have them all meditate and, gain the wisdom realizing emptiness. Then our CIA would really be the central intelligent agency. Wouldn't it? It would really be intelligent. Huh? Okay, the wisdom directly realizing selflessness is suitable because it acts as the direct counterforce to the afflictions. And then the third one is the wisdom directly realizing selflessness is accomplishment because it unmistakably realizes the nature of the mind. It's beautiful. So unlike worldly paths, like gaining these deep states of meditative absorption without wisdom, unlike that, the wisdom that realizes reality is the unmistaken path that can lead us to spiritual attainments. The states of deep concentration without wisdom cannot accomplish this ultimate goal. they can only bring us peaceful states of concentration, but they can't eliminate our real enemy, which is our ignorance. Whereas this wisdom directly realizing selflessness or emptiness can. Okay, so this, realizing this, understanding this, counteracts the misconception that worldly paths, such as these deep states of concentration, can eliminate dukkha forever. Yeah, they can't. Remember, when you're at the top of the Eiffel Tower, the only way to go is down. So when you have these states of blissful concentration, if you don't have the wisdom, you get born in lower realms afterwards. And then the fourth attribute of true paths, the wisdom directly realizing selflessness, is deliverance, because it brings irreversible liberation. So phenomena lack inherent existence, and inherent existence and non-inherent existence are mutually exclusive. You know, they're direct opposites. And so by realizing the lack of inherent existence directly with wisdom, then the ignorance can be conclusively and irreversibly eliminated from the mind. Okay, so definitely eliminating all the obscurations. This wisdom does not stop partway and only eliminate some obscurations, but it eliminates all the obscurations to the mind. Okay, and it eliminates not only all the obscurations, but it eliminates them in such a way that they can never return. So you've not just thrown the thief out of the house, but, you know, you've locked the door and sent the thief on a vacation to the Bahamas. And he can't get out. He's never going to come back. Okay? So, you know, these 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths, when we really think deeply about them, they change the whole way we look at life. Yeah, we no longer see ourselves as, you know, I'm just little old me, and the purpose of my life is, you know, make money, eat chocolate, you know, kind of try and stay out of trouble, get what I want when I want it, but without ruining my reputation or getting in trouble in the process of it. Yeah. And seeing that as the purpose and meaning of our life, and then all we have to look forward to is dying, which is the only thing we have to do. It changes our life from that to, oh my goodness, you know, I'm in this cycle of existence, but I can get out of it. Yeah, and there exists a state of blissful liberation. There exists a path that if I cultivate it and actualize it in my own mind stream, will lead me to that state of liberation. And that state of liberation is completely free from every single obscuration, you know, afflictive obscuration, every single affliction, the karma that causes rebirth can never come again. It's a state of total, complete bliss. Forever free of all my problems. And there's a path that follows it, that leads there. And I'm fortunate enough to meet the Buddha's teachings that can teach me how to practice that path. So, wow, am I lucky in my life? And my life has so much purpose and meaning now. There's something I can do that's really, really valuable for myself and for others. Because if I can gain liberation myself and actually develop, you know, compassion for each living being and aspire for full enlightenment, you know, in order to be able to work for the benefit of sentient beings, then I can do incredible, amazing things to really transform the lives of all the sentient beings who have been and will continue to be kind to me. Yeah. So our whole view of our life completely different. Yeah. So then, you wake up on Monday morning like, oh, God. And then you think, oh, but liberation's possible. The path to liberation exists. Wow. I'm glad I woke up from that sleep now. Let me study a little bit of Dharma. Let me do some meditation practice. My life really has purpose and meaning. Okay. So we have a few minutes for questions. Yeah.
You. Does the bliss of Nirvana go from life to life?
Does the bliss of Nirvana go from life to life? When we've attained Nirvana, we no longer get reborn under the influence of ignorance and afflictions. So yes, that bliss continues ad infinitum.
And we may get another life.
Well, if you just aspire for arhatship and liberation from dukkha, then you're going to stay in a state of meditative equipoise on the nature of nirvana for a long time, until the Buddha comes and wakes you up and says, what about everybody else? Yeah. You've got to attain full awakening to be able to benefit everybody else. So then you enter the bodhisattva path. You practice that path to full awakening. And then, although you may appear in our polluted worlds, you no longer take rebirth under the influence of afflictions. So you no longer have this kind of body which by its nature gets old and sick and dies. You can make an emanation that looks like an ordinary being, and you do that out of compassion to lead others, but you don't yourself suffer from having this kind of body. Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah? You may look like everybody else. Yeah. Your body may look like it has cancer and kidney disease and heart failure, but actually you never get those things again. Yeah?
Good morning. Thank you for your teachings. You used the word soul this morning. Could you give definitions and differences between the word soul and mind stream?
Okay. Difference between soul and mind stream. When we look at a soul, when we think of a soul, or how I'm using the word soul, a soul is something that doesn't change moment to moment. It's fixed, it's static. Yeah. It's the essence of me. It's the real me there. It's something unitary. It doesn't depend on causes and conditions. It's fixed. Mind stream is dependent on causes and conditions. The mind changes moment by moment by moment by moment. It never remains the same. When you look for something that is the mind stream, some unitary thing that is the mind stream, you can't find anything. All you find is constantly changing moments of mind in a continuity. Okay? So soul and mind stream are quite different. Okay? That was a good question. Important question.
You mentioned innate versus acquired delusions.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about to what degree the idea that I am a Buddhist is an acquired delusion?
Okay. Just saying I'm a Buddhist is not a delusion. Okay? Just saying I'm American is not a delusion, or whatever nationality you are. Okay? Just saying that, just saying I'm sitting in this room is not a delusion. The afflictive part of it comes in when it's, I am a Buddhist. I am American. I am this race or this ethnicity. Okay? Where there becomes the grasping at inherent existence involved in it. That's when there's affliction. But just on the conventional level, we're Buddhists. Yeah? You know a box to check. Yeah? You're a man or you're a woman. You know what bathroom to go in. That's helpful. Okay. But when you get into, I'm a man, so you should treat me like this, or I'm a woman, so you should treat me like this, that's when affliction comes in.
So the label is not a delusion. It's the idea that there's something concrete underneath the label.
Right, yeah. Giving something a label is not a problem. Otherwise, when I look at you, what's your name?
Carl.
Carl. I can't say, Carl's there. I have to say the guy with kind of a salt and pepper beard with short, hair, who's wearing a what kind of dark purple T-shirt and tan pants is sitting there. That takes a long time. It's so much easier to say Carl's sitting there. Yeah? So on a conventional level, giving things names is not a problem. Thinking that the object is the name, confusing or thinking the basis of the designation of the name is the object. That's what the problem is. Okay?
Morning. So I don't want to get too far away from the Four Noble Truths. Excuse me, I have allergies. But one thing you said this morning about question absolutely everything. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that drew me to the Dharma initially was we don't have to take most of it on faith. We can apply it in our lives. If it works, great. The practicality of it, it's not so much faith. Yet I still feel like there is some things that maybe we have to take, well, not have to, but, faith is a part of it, like rebirth. Mm-hmm. So, for example, I do believe in rebirth, and yet there's this little sliver of doubt, this little worm of doubt that says, this notion of somehow I'm going to be born as a dung beetle in the next life, it just seems so silly to me. How do I reconcile that?
Okay. So it seems like that though we say question everything, there's some things you have to just accept. Actually, His Holiness says that rebirth is something that can be logically proven. Okay. Now, in order to be somebody who is a receptive vessel who can understand the proof, we need to do some preparation and some purification. Okay? Yeah, because face it, we can't always understand everything, even if it's presented in a reasonable way. Yeah, sometimes our mind is obscured. We don't get the argument. So some preparation has to be done. But basically, the way it goes, the way the proof goes, is it comes back to experience, that our body and our mind are two different things. And I think that has to be established by experience. Yeah, we have to be able to sit there, and get a sense of what our body is and a sense of what consciousness is, and know that they're two different things. Yeah. If we can do that, then we can see that our body has its own system of causes and conditions. Yeah, our body is material in nature, so its causes and conditions are also material or mass in nature. The mind, on the other hand, is not material in nature, and its causes also aren't material in nature. That one moment of mind arises its principal cause was the previous moment of mind. And the previous cause of that was the moment of mind before that. And you can trace the continuity of mind back moment by moment by moment by moment. Okay? And then you get to the time of birth, and you could trace it back into the womb, and then you trace it back to the time of conception, which in Buddhism is defined as when not only the sperm and egg meet, but the consciousness connects with the sperm and egg. That's the moment of conception. Sperm, egg, consciousness. Yeah? So that moment of consciousness that connected with the sperm and egg, what was its cause? Previous moment of consciousness. So that takes you back into life before conception in this life. Okay? And so similarly, when we go forward, life is what we call body and mind, intertwined, relying upon each other. Death is just the body and mind split apart. The body has its continuity, which again is made of atoms and molecules. It gets recycled in nature. The mind has its continuity, one moment of clarity and awareness producing the next moment of clarity and awareness. And what influences where that continuity of mind gets reborn is the karma that we've created in this life and previous lives. Okay? Okay, this will be the last question.
Good morning.
Morning.
Do you know anyone that accomplished liberation?
I believe so, but of course, if I ask them, have you attained liberation or enlightenment, they say no. Yeah? And to me, that indicates somebody who's probably an excellent practitioner. The people who go around saying, I'm liberated, I'm an arhat, I'm a Buddha, I've realized this, I've attained that. I don't trust those people. Yeah. And actually from a Buddhist viewpoint, like monastics, if we lie about our spiritual attainments with the intention to deceive somebody, we lose our monastic ordination. We completely destroy our ordination. That's how serious it is. Yeah. So people are not allowed to proclaim realizations. Yeah. So I always tell people, if somebody's saying, kind of hinting of, I've realized this, I know that, I've attained this, hang on to your wallet. Yeah. But you look at somebody like His Holiness Dalai Lama, who is such an incredible living being. When you listen to his teachings, you can see something quite amazing about him. And the Tibetans think that he's an emanation of Chenrezig, of Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of compassion. And so all these Westerners go up, Dalai Lama, are you really Chenrezig? Are you really a Buddha? And His Holiness says, I am a simple Buddhist monk, that's all. And that, to me, indicates something special about him. He doesn't go, oh, well, I'm glad you noticed. Yes, I am Chenrezig. The donation basket is right here. Put your whole checkbook in it.